first day of early voting across Virginia.
And already thousands have weighed in on what some have called the most consequential election in history. With 45 days to Election Day, our Northern Virginia Bureau Chief Julie Carey saw a steady flow of voters. She has been speaking to voters in 2 key counties about what issues are influencing their decision most.
It was clear on this first day of early voting that many Northern Virginians were determined to cast their ballot at the first opportunity. At the Fairfax County Government Center, the line to cast a ballot extending far in front of the building, then snaking through the hallways inside to the polling place. Around noon, it was about a 30-minute wait. It's the first time this couple has voted early. Former President Donald Trump getting 2 votes from them.
Too many illegals. I'm tired of paying all my taxes for illegals. That's the way I feel about it.
Immigration and the economy, the top 2 issues cited by Trump supporters. This voter declined to reveal his presidential choice, but says he was better off 4 years ago.
When I go into the grocery store, my bill is quite higher than it used to be. Meat is up 40%, eggs are astronomical, milk is astronomical.
This military veteran also not sharing his presidential vote, but his greatest concern, providing a strong clue.
In this country, it's very important to respect everybody regardless of the party, religion, or your sexual affiliation or whatever. It's important to respect your neighbor. And so civility is at the top of my list.
This couple casting presidential ballots for Kamala Harris. 2 issues driving them to vote on day 1, preserving democracy and abortion rights.
For me, it's women's reproductive rights. And so I was determined to be out here as soon as voting started so I could put my choice in there.
This Loudoun County voter also saying concern over abortion rights guided her to vote for Harris and the prospect of witnessing history if Harris is elected.
Wow. I never thought in my lifetime that I would see that. And I'm excited because she brings a breath of new energy.
I do want to go to some breaking news with the new New York Times poll being released today, and Trump is leading Harris in 3 battleground states. So let me read that out to you. As the former president, Donald Trump, leading Vice President Kamala Harris in these 3 crucial swing states. So what states are they? Trump is leading Harris in Arizona by 5 points in a 50 to 45% spread, and he holds a similar 49 to 45% lead in Georgia. Harris is closer to the former president in North Carolina. However, where the race sits, 49 to 47%, still Trump has that favor, according to the poll. The Times conducted its poll from September 17th through the 21st, surveying 2,000 likely voters across all 3 states. Arizona and Georgia would be major victories for President Trump in the general election, as both are states that President Biden won back in 2020. Arizona, in particular, represents a major swing toward Trump, where a Times poll in August found Harris leading by 5 points. The Times survey comes days after a Fox News national poll found Harris leading Trump by 2 points in a 50 to 48% matchup. The new Fox News national survey found a 3 percentage point shift among registered voters in the 2024 presidential contest. Since mid-August, Trump had a 1-point advantage back in August there. So we will continue to follow the latest as these different polls come out each week. Really, every other day, there should be a new poll considering the race that is getting so close. And when we talk about battleground states, that is what it is going to come down to. These 7 states in particular are going to make or break it for a particular candidate. And we'll be continuing to track the latest polls. But you know what? We've said it in the past. Polls don't mean anything until we get the election results coming in November.
A Muslim majority city in Michigan has endorsed Donald Trump. Lauren, why is this guy backing Trump?
So it's the Hamtramck mayor, Amir Ghalib, and he says Trump is, I'm quoting, the right choice for this critical time, and then he called Trump a man of principles. So they met last week. Hamtramck is a suburb of Detroit, predominantly Muslim. They even have this mile-long street there called Palestine Avenue. The mayor is a Democrat. The city was a hotbed for that uncommitted movement against Biden. Trump says, look, he got this mayor's support, maybe the city's support, because the world was at peace when he was president. And guess what? He returns to Michigan for the 11th time on Friday, the day after their absentee ballots become available.
And let's discuss Senator Lindsey Graham's visit to Nebraska this week in regards to pushing for a winner-take-all system when it comes to the state's 5 electoral votes. 5 Republican lawmakers from Nebraska are also pushing for this, but remind us which states sort of do this hybrid and why and what it would take for that to change.
Well, Nebraska too. The Nebraska 2nd District has 1 electoral vote. And that area, that blue dot, if you will, is a very more traditionally Democratic voting section of a very red state. But that 1 electoral vote is part of one of the paths to 270 on the electoral map for the Harris campaign. And if it is a close race, and we do see in the polling data that we've seen this week in these key battleground states, it could, I want to emphasize could, come down to 1 electoral vote. Therefore, by changing that, by eradicating, if you will, that 1 blue dot, that 1 electoral vote, it gives the Republicans and Trump an advantage on that map. So that's why there's been such an interest by Trump allies. That's why we've seen Senator Graham, who is an advisor to the former president, go down there. And I think that that's something that we need to watch, because if that changes, it does sort of, it's a little bit like Jenga in terms of the strategic map for Democrats.
In other election news, the Arizona Supreme Court ruling today that the 98,000 residents who have not fulfilled their proof of citizenship will still be able to vote. So the move by the state's high court helps resolve a clerical glitch that left the eligibility of those registered voters in question. Now, the court was asked to decide whether these voters should get a, quote, federal only ballot or one that also includes state and local races. The high court was on a tight timeline to produce a ruling in the face of looming deadlines to print and mail ballots.
Despite some Republican complaints about after 2020 about the length of time it can take to count ballots, Georgia's election board today approved a controversial new rule to require hand counts of all ballots at polling places. The vote was 3-2, backing the proposal were 3 allies of the former president. Now, critics have said the requirement could stretch out and introduce chaos into the vote counting process. That is, if it even passes legal muster. Sienna Sarah Murray joins us now with the latest. So explain what happened today.
Well, what we saw is the Republican majority on the state election board push forward this rule change that would go into effect in October against the advice of the Secretary of State, against the advice of the Republican Attorney General, against the pleadings of bipartisan election officials across the state. And essentially what it does is it says that after you've conducted this whole election workers, you've been awake all day, you need to hand count the number of ballots that have been turned in. You need to compare that to the number of ballots that voting machines say were cast and compare those 2 numbers. And so there are a lot of concerns about this from the perspective of statewide election officials and local election officials. One is, they've been working all day. Hand counting paper ballots is not a perfect science. Usually the machine count numbers are better, and that you have a chain of custody issue with these ballots. So the view of voting rights experts and election experts is that this could just inject a lot of chaos. It could delay figuring out who won the state. And, we've seen in the past, the longer it takes to count, the more we have these kind of conspiracy theories fester.
So what happens next?
What happens next is sort of a question of who is going to sue and when. And there's a statement today after the meeting from Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger that sort of hints at that. He says Attorney General Chris Carr has stated that these rules would not withstand a legal challenge, and I have worked every day to strengthen Georgia's election law to ensure our elections remain safe, secure, and free. It would not be the first time the state election board has been sued as a result of rules they've passed just this year. They're already in court over a rule regarding election certification and saying state or local boards can conduct their own reasonable inquiries before they certify the election results. So I expect we're going to see more lawsuits. And Anderson, I think what's really important about what we saw in Georgia today is this is sort of an early glimpse, a preview, if you will, of the kind of stuff we're going to see in the run-up to and after November. We have a lot more folks who are election skeptics that are in positions of overseeing or even administering elections. And so there's just a lot more of this that's still to come.